Hi guys, Ronnie here. Now that the cold days have rolled in, basically, I got a couple of questions regarding my indoor training setup and my trainer that I use. So up until now, I've used a couple of different type of trainers. I've used an Elite Turbo Muin, which was not a smart trainer, then the Elite Diretto, the first generation, and also the Elite Drivo first generation. And after those, I got a Wahoo Kickr 17 since I became an official Wahoo dealer. And I've been using this for a while now, also during the summer for some training rides as a supplement, and now a bit more intensively that the weather has turned bad and I started going to university again. So what are my impressions of this unit? Well, for first, I really like the construction because it has quite a small form factor. The feet are foldable. You can adjust. It basically has a steel tubular frame which you can adjust to different wheel sizes, so you can fit pretty much from a 24-inch kids road bike up until a full-on 29er mountain bike. So that's definitely a good thing, and not something that many trainers have. I think the Elite doesn't have it, or the Elite trainers don't have it. The Kickr definitely, or sorry, the Neo definitely doesn't have it. So that's a nice feature in terms of compatibility. Of course, it fits quick release and true axle bikes, and now in boost standard as well. The interesting thing about the Kickr here is that the attachment points actually pivot to enable compatibility with the Kickr Climb, but it also uses the risk of damage when you just leave the front of your bike while it's still on the trainer, and it pivots with it instead of just mangling the dropouts. It also comes with a cassette, so you don't need to mess around with it. Only a small issue with this. So basically every other trainer I had before, I didn't have to adjust the gearing to be, well, basically noise free and effective. With this one, the cassette seems to sit a bit further inboard than with any of my wheels, and since I don't really want adjusting my shifting when I put the bike on the trainer, I just put two thin washers behind the cassette to put it a little bit more outboard, and now it's perfect. So if you have issues like this, it's an easy fix, although it's a bit weird that it only happens on this trainer. As for the riding, this trainer isn't very silent. This is the 17 version, so it doesn't have the updated belt, but it's nothing obnoxious. I have no neighbors here, basically. This is a big building, so noise isn't really an issue for me. So that's not a problem, although the Drivo definitely was more silent. What is much better than the Drivo though is the stability. So yeah, this is basically rock solid, no matter how hard you crank on it. And you have also a fairly big adjustment range in the feet, so you can use it even on slightly uneven ground, so that's definitely a plus. Another thing that I really like compared to the Elite trainers that I had before is erg mode. On the Elite trainers, it's basically useless. It's so slow to react that you can't really do interval training with it. This one reacts much quicker, particularly when ramping up the resistance. So that's almost immediate. It takes, for example, from 180 watts to 420, it takes around 2 or 3 seconds, so that's good. The smoothness is also very good when keeping you at the power. What isn't perfect is actually when the power drops. Big differences between your recovery and your interval, like for example going from 200 watts to 500 watts in short succession, so for example 30-minute full-on efforts, then the trainer has trouble reducing the wattage quick enough, so effectively your training or your recovery period is a bit more taxing than it should be. But that only happens in these very specific cases, otherwise it's perfectly fine and miles better than anything from Elite. As for the road fill, well, I'm not really the person to geek about that. It doesn't feel weird, it feels perfectly normal to pedal. It also doesn't have the huge base level of resistance of the Elite trainers, which is also kind of nice. But the thing is, if you want to take this to a race and warm up on it, you have to bear in mind that, you know, when it's not plugged in, it just doesn't have very much resistance at all. On my time trial bike, my biggest gear is 5811, and even with that gear, in that gear, it's not really possible to do any meaningful training work in it. So you definitely need to be plugged in. One weird thing I have noticed is that I can't leave it plugged in, because even when it's no longer connected, it just keeps turned on. Maybe it's only my unit, I haven't heard anything like this before, but even when I stop using it, the Ant Plus logo or the status light is still turned on, so for some reason it keeps connecting it to the computer and it won't turn off, so I had to start plugging it or unplugging it manually. And also regarding the trainer spin down function for calibration, it takes quite long because, well, it doesn't have much resistance and it spins forever, and sometimes it just hang up. I'm sure that's only a software or firmware issue and it won't calibrate itself, but that's not really a problem because, well, I use the cranks for my power anyway. For just general riding around in Zwift, it feels perfectly normal and reacts very well to the gradients. Doesn't have the downhill simulation of the Neo though, or the cobble, whatever gimmicky thing it has with the rough roads. It's not really necessary, I think, for training. So yeah, these are my impressions. At some point you will surely ask, will I upgrade to the Kickr 18? Well, since I don't really have any niggles with this one, I don't think so, although if I get a good buyer for this, then maybe I will, although the availability of the new Wahoo products is kind of sketchy lately. What I definitely want to get my hands on is a headwind fan, because this one just can't really cut serious training. But other than that, I'm very happy with this unit. Okay, so if you want to know more about the bikes or the training itself or the training that I do, then don't forget to tune into the channel and see you next time.